Silent time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. All feel they fall. And the carrying signs mostly say hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia strikes deep into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the man come and take you away. We better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. We better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. We better stop now. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going. We better stop. Children, what's that sound?
Hey, my name is Shad, and I'm glad to be here alongside all these other folks to honor Jack's legacy and his life. To me, he represents a sense of possibility, which is something I think is much needed right now, and it's what this song is about. It's called Out of Touch.
Let's hear it for Shad. Thank you so much, Shad, for that musical kickoff to our celebration here this afternoon. Tanishi Kiawao. Bonjour tout le monde. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Barrie. I serve on the board of directors for the Institute for Change Leaders, and I'm incredibly honored and humbled to be emceeing this event here with all of us this afternoon. Bonjour tout le monde. Je me présente, Mike Barrie. Je suis très honoré d'être ici avec vous cet après-midi. Nous sommes ici pour présenter le prix de militation Jack Layton, the Jack Layton Activism Award. We've gathered here today to celebrate Jack's life, his legacy, his memory, and the values of action that surround who Jack was and how his spirit is still with us today. So let's hear it for the Jack Layton Activism Award. Of course, we need to start today by honoring and acknowledging the lands upon which we gather, the traditional territories, including, well, of many nations, really, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. We are also here subject to and on the land of the Dish with One Spoon territory, where we all share in stewarding of the land. And in true Indigenous hospitality, everyone is invited to share in the Dish with One Spoon wampum as we move forward together. And now, of course, here on these lands, they're the home to many Inuit and Métis people. Canoes have traversed these waterways since time immemorial, and we're very grateful to see the land and the water and the parks here amongst this incredible urban cityscape. We're also, of course, gathered. Says a lot about leadership, about Jack's legacy, of course. We could be anywhere in the world, literally, this afternoon. And we've decided to spend our time and our fellowship together here to honor Jack, to be inspired, and to congratulate those who've been honored today in keeping his legacy moving forward. Of course, it's a solemn occasion as we gather as well. This is the 11th anniversary of Jack's passing. And when I think of Jack's passing, I always seem to remember the words that came in the days after December 6th. First we mourn, then we work for change. And I know many of us are still mourning Jack's passing and always will, but those last words, then we work for change, seems to embody the inspiration that Jack has left with us, that work for change. There's some ancient wisdom that says, you know, be an activist. Yeah, I'm sure Jack admonished everyone in this room and on Zoom to be an activist. And I love that expression, of course. Be an activist, and if you have to, use words. And Exhibit A, if you'll join me, Exhibit A on how Jack lived and lives on with that admonishment, be an activist, and if you have to, use words. Are you ready? There we are. The iconic symbol of action and activism, being an activist, and if you have to, use words. Jack spoke so loudly through his actions. Moving forward this afternoon, we're also grateful for the contribution to these awards of the Douglas Coldwell Layton Foundation. The Douglas Coldwell Layton Foundation, unfortunately, Executive Director Josh Bajak couldn't be with us today, but the foundation was formed as a charity about 50 years ago by Tommy Douglas himself. And today, the foundation contributes to social democratic and social justice policy dialogue to provoke discussion through research and education and convening important conversations for us and, of course, to inspire future generations. Last year, the Layton Legacy was established to pay tribute to the life, career, and accomplishments of our dear friend, the late Jack Layton. So now more than ever, I think you'll agree, we really need Jack's message of love, hope, and optimism. And as we face the challenges of today and what the next decade will bring. A key component of the Layton Legacy is to encourage and support new waves of action and activism. That's what makes the Jack Layton Activism Awards such an important part, of the work at the foundation. So the Douglas Coldwell Layton Foundation is very proud to be here. Some folks are here from the foundation and in spirit and online on Zoom on behalf of the board of directors and Josh. Congratulations to this year's recipients. We're going to call upon Brianne Doyle to tell us about the Journalism Award. Rabble.ca, which is known to everyone in the room and on Zoom, sure, is Canada's original online independent progressive media source. Since 2001, it's an online daily publication that focuses on news and opinion from Canada's grassroots social movements and the labor movement. Rabble.ca, the Institute for Change Leaders, and the Douglas Coldwell Layton Foundation have partnered to establish these awards and the Jack Layton Journalism for Change Fellowship. The fellowship supports emerging journalists who are passionate and engaged and seek investigative journalism to develop unique voices in social change reporting. So please join me in welcoming Rabble.ca's editorial producer, Brianne Doyle.
Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that warm welcome. Yeah, I'm just going to repeat a lot of what Mike has said here. But hello, my name is Brianne Doyle, and I'm the managing editor here at Rabble.ca. It's great to be with you all today. If you're not familiar with us, Rabble is Canada's oldest independent news site that focuses on sharing the progressive stories, perspectives, and insight that mainstream media often misses. I'm delighted to attend the Jack Layton Legacy Awards today to introduce an opportunity inspired by his legacy, the Jack Layton Journalism for Change Fellowship. The Jack Layton Journalism for Change Fellowship supports emerging journalists who are passionate about social justice reporting. Rabble and the Institute for Change Leaders have teamed up for what will be the 5th year of the fellowship. And today I'm excited to announce that the Douglas Coldwell Layton Foundation has also joined to support the fellowship. Welcome aboard the Douglas Coldwell Layton Foundation. To learn more about the Journalism Fellowship and past fellows we've had the pleasure of working with, we have a short video to play for you today. If we could share that now, that would be great.
Jack Layton had a vision for a multicultural and robust Canadian democracy. Journalists play a role in helping to make this vision possible by shining a light on injustice, telling stories of people from diverse backgrounds, and holding people in power to account.
There are so many stories that don't get to be told. There are so many voices that aren't heard. And so the Jack Layton Fellowship is just one opportunity for people to share their story and to advocate for justice and to try and provoke the social change that they so desperately need and want.
For anyone who's thinking of applying, just do it. Absolutely suited to anyone who has a passion in a particular topic and wants to explore it further, go in depth, and be able to write about it on a platform that allows for those expression of those ideas and sort of speak freely on those topics.
I look forward to working with the next Jack Layton Fellowship for Change journalist here at rabble.ca.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as you can see, the 4-month-long Jack Layton Journalism for Change Fellowship is an important and unique opportunity for emerging writers who want to develop their social justice reporting and establish their journalistic voices. This fellowship is possible through community support. So if you care about advancing social change in Canada, I encourage you to help fund this amazing program. Please visit rabble.ca/journalism for change to honor Jack Layton's legacy by becoming a supporter or apply to the fellowship. The deadline for fellowship applications is September 23rd at midnight. I want to thank you again so much for the time today, and thank you to the Douglas Coldwell Layton Foundation and the Institute for Change Leaders for supporting emerging voices in journalism. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Brienne. Merci beaucoup, and bon courage. Thank you for all Rabble does for progressive journalism, especially in today's challenging, shall we say, media landscape. And what would an awards ceremony, a Layton Chow event, a progressive forum be without a panel discussion? Right? So I tell you, are you in for a treat today? Yeah. It's like the old rock band is getting back together. Please welcome to the stage for our panel discussion, Jack's former Chiefs of Staff, Anne McGrath, Director of Canada's NDP, Bob Gallagher, and Jack's former Press Secretary and President of the Douglas Coldwell Layton Foundation, Monsieur Karl Belanger, to have a discussion about Jack's legacy.
Thank you, Mike. Bonjour tout le monde. Karl Belanger, donc, avec Anne McGrath et Bob Gallagher. Très content d'être avec vous aujourd'hui, en ce 22 août. Now, August 22nd is a very special day for me because it is my wedding anniversary. So I hope you realize how many points I'm burning to be with you today to commemorate this other very special day for all of us, of course, with Jack's passing already 11 years ago. As you heard, both Anne and Bob served as Chief of Staff for Jack Layton, which means that they were both my boss at one point, but today I am in charge. So let's get started, because I know we have a clock and a schedule to keep, and we want to get through the agenda. But August 22nd, Anne, I'm going to start with you. What does that day represent for you?
It represents an enormous loss. It's a day that I find hard every year. And as you can tell, I feel on the verge of tears all day on August 22nd. It was heartbreaking. It was devastating. It was, it was like everything changed on that day. We had had such we were coming out of such a successful election. We had done so many great things. I feel like Jack was poised, in my view, to be the next Prime Minister and without his, ever-present love every day, because working with Jack meant that you experienced that love all the time.
Bob, same question to you. What does August 22nd mean for you?
Well, I mean, I agree with Anne that there was much for Jack to do, and he would have done much more had he been able to. But I really focus on the time of celebrating his life. And boy, do we have a lot to celebrate in his life. He really changed politics in Canada. He inspired generations of people. But most importantly, he actually made real differences at the city level and at the federal level. And so when I think of today, I think it's very important that we honor those who really made a difference in Canadian history. So often it's not the progressives that get honored, but it's very important because he was really quite an impressive changer.
Well, so let me build on that. How did he change things? I mean, political leaders come and go, federal politicians come and go. There's been many for all the parties. But what made Jack Layton so special that all these years after his passing, we are still talking about his legacy and we're still celebrating it, and there are awards and there's a foundation now bearing his name. Like, what made him so special? How did he make change? Bob, maybe I'll start with you and then.
Well, I don't think you can put it into simple words, but Jack was someone who believed in inspiring, providing a vision. Jack had this unique ability to think about what he was doing then and accomplishing what needed to be done right now, but using the vision of the future, the vision of how life could be otherwise, to be able to make a difference. And I think people really, that resonates for people when you can actually talk about how we could be better, how our society could be better, and how we can get there. And for someone to have the ability to have that kind of vision, but at the same time dedicate his life to actually getting things done in a practical way and accomplishing that is really quite incredible.
I think he had to work really hard to get Jack to write you off. He just, he did see the good in people, even, to be honest, people that I didn't see a lot of good in. But he was able to really bring out the best in people. And he was able to make you, I used to always joke that he always used to make me want to work harder and sleep less, which is a big feat. But I felt so honored, really, to work with him, that I always wanted to do more, sometimes more even than my capacity. So I always found that he was able to find opportunity in what looked like a miserable situation. He would just, I would think something terrible had just happened, and he would look at it and say, "What an opportunity!" And he would find a way to kind of grasp victory from the jaws of defeat rather than the other way around, as we are often very good at doing.
Yeah, he was not a guy that spent too much time looking back, right? He was always looking for a way forward. Mm-hmm. And because of that, he was always looking for a way to discuss with his political opponents and get things done, right? Talk to us about that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was... he was able to build bridges with people and find ways of getting them to do the things that he wanted them to do, and sometimes convincing them that it was their idea.
They still take credit for it to this day.
They do. They definitely do. So I mean, I saw that many, many times. Where he would. I mean, I was in meetings with him with the Prime Minister of the time, Stephen Harper. I think thought it was his idea, whether it was around reaching out to Indigenous organizations or, all sorts of things, being more open to unions during labor disputes, all of those kinds of things. Obviously you're working within the limits of who you're reaching out to. So it wasn't spectacular or anything, but he did get people to do things and make them think it was their idea, and often it was things that they wouldn't normally do. And he had so many ideas, sometimes too many. Yeah, totally. I mean, I do remember saying to him sometimes, sometimes too many ideas can be as debilitating as none. But he just was overflowing with ideas, with drive, with ambition for progressive change.
Now,
to accent that, I remember a time when Jack first met Stephen Harper as Prime Minister. He and I went to his office. It was a private meeting. The media didn't know about it. It was really the time to get to know each other. And he brought an eagle feather, and he brought Tim Flanagan's Weathermakers, the book on climate change, which was not known at that point very well. And he talked about how you have to reconcile with Indigenous people, and you have to apologize. This is years before the apology was ever made. And he said, you need to read this book because your legacy needs to include climate change. And so, he left the eagle feather, and he had left the book for Stephen Harper, someone that he had disagreed on virtually every policy, but he saw that he could potentially get him to do some of those things. And in both the cases of the apology and climate change, he had an impact. And then he fought him on all those other policies that he totally disagreed with.
Now, Bob, we've been talking a lot about his impact at the federal level. Obviously, for most Canadians, that's how they knew him, as leader of the federal NDP. But here in Toronto, he also had an impact at the municipal level. He was a city councillor for a long time, and you worked with him as a city councillor. How was he back then as a city councillor?
I think Jack loved municipal politics more than anything. Like, municipal politics is where you actually get to work with people. You get work on it and actually finish it in your lifetime, and that's what he liked doing, whether it was deciding that Toronto would be the first city ever to have a wind turbine built, an urban wind turbine, and doing it. He was able to kind of conceptualize that we would actually someday need this kind of power, and to be able to work on it and actually get it built. Whether it was actually when Mel Lastman was mayor, and he was going to destroy Tent City and kick out all these homeless folks, he and Olivia were able to go down and actually meet with them, talk with them, and then come back to Mel Lastman and do this another way, because he valued those people, and he knew that in a municipal level, you were able to be able to make that difference. And not only did his ability to get things done come out, it's also where he honed his oratory skills. The city is one of those places where they meet regularly and everybody has their opinion about what is coming up. And he was able to persuade them and use municipal politics where he could have a different majority pulled together on every issue. So he never saw any issue as actually not being worth fighting for, and he would build that consensus.
Now, let me stick with you, Bob, for a second, because you had the unique experience of working with Jack, both at the municipal level and at the federal level. What was different between Jack, the municipal politician, and Jack, the federal politician?
Well, first of all, there was a lot that was the same. His beliefs and his belief system, his principle of social democracy and equity stayed. Just anybody who knew him, and anybody even came close to him, knew that stayed the same. But in fact, he changed quite a bit at the federal level. He really matured. He realized that what he was dealing with was a larger pond, a larger sense of change, and he started thinking even bigger. It was interesting that he introduced Bill C-377, which he himself wrote along with a few of us, which was the first time to introduce real climate change strategy. And this was 8 years before the Paris Accord. So he was able to actually realize that I need to start thinking really big and introduce those kinds of things. And so he was a much more mature politician. He was a much better speaker. He was somebody who could lead a large organization, as was when he was in the opposition. You know, he was able to do that, but those principles of social democracy, of fighting for those who are left out and left behind, that's where your energy is, not in helping the corporate world have an environment to be able to thrive on. And those principles stayed with them. But yeah, he changed quite a bit.
He also brought a lot of skills so that he had in the municipal level too, because I know in committee work, for instance, he would, I remember being in a meeting with the leader of the Liberal opposition at the time, and we were trying to do something, and I can't remember which leader it was. There were a few of them. It was Dion or Ignatieff or whoever it was, but he was sort of saying on the Afghan detainee issue, he was saying, well, this is how we'll do it. We'll go in there. It's the way that Olivia and I used to do it in City Hall. It's like, I move the motion, this person seconds it, bing, bang, boom, it's done. You know, and I remember Dion or Ignatieff was just sort of sitting there looking a bit befuddled, because he just like, if we want to do it, we can do it. And so he knew how to move things through.
You know, municipal politics is really minority government all the time.
That's right.
That's what municipal politics. You've got to somehow figure out how can you get 50% plus one of the votes of city council, and it may not be the same one. And that's why he was so well prepared when we finally went into minority governments. Yeah. Like, he was able to use the power that he had to be able to make change by bringing people on and figuring out how to somehow put together a majority.
Now, Jack Layton was obviously a very skilled politician. You don't get to have the best results in the history of the CCF-NDP without being one. And so he knew issues that worked. He knew issues that worked with people. Climate change is one of them. He saw that, was kind of seeing that. But there are other issues that are not necessarily seen as vote getters. Homelessness comes to mind. Talk to us about his advocacy for homeless people. Maybe start with Bob and then to Anne.
Well, as you probably remember, that his first book was called Homelessness, and it was really out of the campaigns that he had seen activists on the ground in Toronto and in other urban areas in Canada fighting for homeless. And he spent nights sleeping in shelters. He spent time going under bridges and talking to people. He was not the politician that kind of read a book and looked at some background notes and made a decision. He was someone who actually went in and tried to understand the people who were affected by it. And I think that was largely one of the reasons why homelessness became one of the crucial areas, along with climate change and gay rights.
So it was his first book, but then he had a rewrite of that book when you were there. So it really was a focus of his.
It was a huge focus. And one of the things that was very important to him was the voices of the people who were experiencing this, right? So I remember, you know, he would look at the draft of a speech and he would want to put people's names in it. And, you know, I remember Eugene Upper, for instance, who was a homeless person who died close to Jack and Olivia's place. And he always wanted to talk about Eugene. And he wouldn't let people who were experiencing homelessness be nameless, you know. To the frustration sometimes of people who were trying to work on his speeches.
Never happened. Don't know what you're talking about.
But he really wanted people, exactly. But he wanted people to know who we were talking about, and that they were real people, names and stories and hopes and dreams as well.
Because he truly cared about.
He really.
What does that mean for you? What is Jack Layton's legacy?
Well, let me just go to a personal legacy. I met Jack Layton on February 6, 1981. The day before that was when the police raided every gay bathhouse in Toronto. And I and a few others organized a demonstration for Young and Wellesley at 11 o'clock at night. And 11 o'clock at night, queers tend to like night rather than day, so we did that. And I was on a megaphone telling people, we marched down the division, you know, to really kind of send our outrage. And Jack Layton came up to me at the end of that and said, hey, we should get together. And he was a supporter of gay rights from the very beginning. You know, he was a partner all the time. And when in the Bath raids, when we needed a phone bank, he organized, so we used the secretarial pool of City Hall to get the message out to organize the resistance to the police at that time, you know? And then he became the Board of Health, chair of the Board of Health, and he brought in the very first AIDS strategy for a city in this planet. It was with money, with organization. It showed how you had to take it on. This is a decade virtually before the US president would even mention the word AIDS. And it was a blueprint that both San Francisco and New York took on from that model. And he did that single-handedly in the middle of the AIDS epidemic. And then 20 years after I had started and been involved with the battle for gay relationships and then for gay marriage, he and I worked on our first project in Ottawa was to make sure that same-sex marriage passed. And it was then, and the pressure we put on Paul Martin, who wouldn't mention the L or G words, to be able to pass that in 2005. Like, so for me, on a personal level, his legacy is an incredible legacy for queer rights.
And in that vote, Karl and I were with him in Ireland, actually, at the time when the vote was coming up, because the monument for the victims of Air India was being done so we did this whirlwind trip to Ireland to do the memorial for the Air India victims, and many of the survivors were there and so forth. But it was like a 24-hour trip so that we could get back in time for the vote on same-sex rights.
It was one of my proudest moments, but it was also one of Jack's proudest moments in his career.
Yeah, it was grueling, but he insisted. I mean, really, you know, you come back from a trip like that, you would think you'd go take a nap.
Right. Not Jack.
No. So, you know, I remember that very, very well. He was very determined and very, very strong on that. The other thing in terms of his legacy, though, I think is a little bit what Bob was saying at the beginning, and it is the number of people, intergenerational people, who felt inspired by him. You know, I know there's municipal elections happening in Ontario right now, and a lot of progressive people are running for positions, and I thank them for that. But a lot of them have been inspired by Jack. I've met people across the country who felt like they knew him. You know, and some of them may have, but some of them may not have. But people felt like they knew him. So he had a huge impact on people, old, young, people who knew him, people who ran into him, you know, on a street corner or that kind of thing. And, you know, I remember in, I think it was 2004, 2005, we went to Quebec and we were in a French immersion week course. And, you know, he was not then who he was in 2011, but he had crowds of people all the time. It was impossible to walk a block with that guy without, you know, I mean, it just took forever. We were late for everything all the time because people wanted to stop and talk to him and give him their opinions and take photos with them and all of that, even from the very beginning. So, and I've met people like, people in City Council in Calgary, for instance, who were inspired by his letter, and who felt like that was what convinced them to run, progressive city councillors in Calgary. So I think he's had a huge impact on people who knew him, people who maybe think they knew him, and on people who just sort of, you know, he filled up the space so much, you know, and we saw that when he died, you know, the number of people that stood outside Parliament to go in for the viewing, the number of you know, places, cities that lit up in orange, all of the things that kind of, you know, have, and the fact that it's been 11 years and I think people still care, people still want to know about him, and people still want to feel connected to him.
Everyone, this was Bob Gallagher and Anne McGrath, Jack Layton's Chiefs of Staff.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Merci beaucoup, Karl et Anne et Bob, surtout pour partager ces sentiments, ces histoires d'inspiration et détaillées de la vie de Jack puis son travail aussi. So thank you very much for sharing those personal stories, those detailed stories from directly knowing and working with Jack. I know we've all enjoyed hearing them this afternoon again and receiving inspiration. Speaking of which, someone now who really needs no introduction, of course. Bob, you mentioned Canadian history, political history. Our next person to take the podium is part of Canadian political history, part of the most dynamic duo in Canadian history. 50%, Jack might say 60, 70, 80% of that duo. An activist and social justice worker, a force of nature in her own right, Olivia.
Thank you for that introduction. Bob and Anne talked about ego feathers. You've seen them at his office. He was buried with one. And 11 years ago, when we had that state funeral at Roy Thompson Hall, the chief then of AFN, Sean Atleo, gave a ego feather to me and the Layton family. I brought it along today because I want to read something to you about ego feathers. What does ego feather means? So this ego feather, Sean Atleo wrote, "An amazing human that walked among us, now he soars with the eagles." And he recently texted me and said that this sentiment was shared by First Nations across the land. By the way, Mike Layton and Sarah Layton is on Zoom right now, buried in there somewhere. They're there. So I looked up a beautiful writer called Richard Wakamist, and in his book that said, "What Comes from Spirit," he had collected ego feathers in his house. This is Richard. And he asked an elder, "What does it mean, ego feather?" And here I quote, "As I studied it, he told me," this is the elder, me being Richard, "where to look. He pointed to the spine and said that the spine that ran the length of it was the road of our life. It's thicker and fuller at the base, and then gradually thins and softens and disappears eventually, just like we do. In our early years, we absorb learning. Our hearts and minds and spirits drink in everything. But as we grow, we tend to forget our reliance on innocence and trust and humility. We become more concerned with practical things. But the teachings are always with us. In that, it represents our life journey. Along both sides of that spine are hundreds of fine filaments that together make up the body of the feather. Each of those filaments represents a teaching that we gathered as we travel. Each teaching helps us to become whole. There are teachings about relationships, work, community, well-being, honesty, truth, and principles meant to form the foundations of our days. Everything we do as a matter of course in our life has a potential for teaching if we choose to look. So like that feather, we are a sum of all the teachings we gathered in our life. One side is always wider than others. I didn't realize that until I really looked at this. That's because some teachings are more vital than others but they are all necessary in order for the eagle and we humans to achieve grace, to soar higher, to see further. Then he said, if I turn the feather over, I would see that it becomes its opposite. That's because there are stronger and weaker teachings that come to us through stronger or weaker choices. Our life becomes whole when we can see the teachings that come to us through power of choice. The eagle has the gift of vision. The feathers enable him to achieve the height necessary to see a long way. When we reflect on our lives, we come to recognize the effect of teachings, even those we perhaps didn't recognize as such when they were happening to us. To be given an eagle feather is to be recognized for having the vision and the courage to live a life based on principle. And Richard concludes by saying, my life becomes more when I learn to look. There are teachings everywhere, and the ones I choose to find through the power of strong choices flesh my life out, make it fuller, let me soar. Wow, amazing teaching, isn't that? Yeah. We face difficult challenges of our lives, and we make tough choices. Sometimes we don't think about it as much, sometimes we do. Learning from these choices are in fact what we teach at Institute for Change Leaders. Challenge, choice, outcome, yeah. And the Marshall Gans teaching. Some of you that have been involved in ICL would say, Olivia, challenge and choices are. So may the words from Richard Wakamese and the sacred wisdom of the eagle feathers from First Nations, Métis and Inuit continue to teach us, make our lives fuller, and make us soar together. And thank you for being here today.
Wow, thank you, Olivia. And now to the business at hand. Comme j'ai dit au début de cet après-midi, nous sommes ici pour présenter le prix de militantisme, disons. Jack Layton, merci Karl. En direct sur place ici et en ligne, we're here now to present the Jack Layton Activism Award here live and on Zoom. And for this, we're very pleased and fortunate to have had an expert panel of judges from across the country with deep ties, as we've heard earlier, deep ties to Jack's life and work, who helped decide the recipient of this year's awards. We would like to say a huge and heartfelt thank you to our judges, activist and former Member of Parliament Libby Davies, former Legislative Assembly member Jens Pedersen from Saskatchewan, community advocate Darnell Harris from here in Ontario, former Member of Parliament Hélène Leblanc from Quebec. Elle a marché ici directement de Montréal. She walked here all the way from Montreal, she told me, which is quite impressive. She started yesterday, so that's not too bad. No. Elle m'a dit qu'elle a pris le train. She told me earlier she took the train, very green and enviro. And also Jack's former chief of staff, who we know, of course, for hailing from here in Ontario as well, Mr. Bob Gallagher. And they have done their duty. I'm pleased to report that they have selected an incredible, truly incredible recipient that is making a huge difference in their community, one which would have made Jack proud. And we can't wait to share this person with you. But we're going to talk about honorable mentions. So turning that over to, please help me welcome the chair of our judging committee, Libby Davies.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. And hello, everybody. It's just a pleasure to be here today for this wonderful event. I was very fortunate to be a part of Jack Layton's caucus from 2003 to 2011. And I know that some of his former colleagues, like Sven, is on the Zoom call. Hello, Sven. I know there's many of us who remember this day, particularly, as Anne said, with sadness, but also a great sense of legacy. Jack always said to us, you know, that the caucus was like his second family. He was that close to people individually, one by one. He knew people and he knew what we were about and what he wanted us to do as a team. And so I just want to say thank you to Sarah and Mike for sharing your wonderful dad with us as our family. And we were very much a part of a big family. And also a big shout out to Olivia, who is still a trailblazer with the Institute for Change Leaders and is carrying on Jack's legacy and her own work. It's really just quite amazing to see the energy and drive and passion that Olivia has for building a movement, mobilization, and organizing. Jack and Olivia always believed in the power of organizing and bringing people to a greater sense of unity and collectivity. So thank you, Olivia. You're just a beautiful, wonderful person. On behalf of the judges panel, I just want to say that we were really blown away with the response for the call to nominations this year. We received over 100 from people and organizations working for critical change at all levels across the country. This included people that are organizing to end homelessness, to address food insecurity, to help women leave domestic violence, to support parents of children living with disability, to strengthen reconciliation with Indigenous communities, and so much more. The breadth of scope of activism was really quite remarkable. And the impacts that this work is having was humbling and inspiring. Even in these difficult times, there are so many people fighting every day to build a future of love, hope, and optimism, just as Jack would have wanted us to do. Before we announce our winner, we did want to share with you a very special organization that was chosen as this year's honorable mention. Ryan's Hope was born out of the tragic loss of Ryan Naylor, a young man in Barrie, Ontario, who died of an overdose. This organization provides breakfast as well as a sense of community and connection to Barrie's unhoused population. Ryan's parents, Christy and Tom, founded Ryan's Hope as a way to shine a spotlight on the intersections of homelessness, addiction, and mental health. It's 100% run by 30 volunteers. Ryan's Hope goes beyond providing food to those who need it, to providing a vital sense of community to people in Barrie who are living on the margins. We were particularly impressed as a panel of judges by their innovative peer support program, which engages volunteers who have lived experience. They are powered by human kindness through tireless education and advocacy. Ryan's Hope provides community connection and compassion every single day. On behalf award to Ryan's Hope. Thank you.
Olivia, can you please come forward to present the award?
And may I ask the two judges that are here, Glenn, come on up. There, goosebumps too.
Okay. I'm Christine Naylor. I am the co-founder and director of Ryan's Hope. And we are honored that we have been chosen as the honorable mention for the Layton Activism Award for 2022. Ryan's Hope is an organization that my husband and I started in memory and honor of our son, Ryan. Ryan lived with bipolar disorder. He started using drugs to help him cope. Ryan was highly educated. He was a gifted writer and speaker, and he was really able to advocate well for himself, as well as he had a family that were fierce advocates for him. And still we were unable to get him the supports and the help that he needed. And unfortunately, in November of 2020, he lost his life due to toxic drugs. We wanted to do something to continue in his memory who he was as a person, and also to support people that were struggling with similar issues. And that's how Ryan's Hope came to be. We provide direct support in our community. We operate a breakfast to go program that serves upwards of 100 people a day. We do street outreach every evening, going out and connecting with people that are living unsheltered in our community, providing them with basic needs, food, clothing, sleeping bags, as well as just connection, the human connection. People do want to help and they want to make a difference in their community. They just often, it feels overwhelming. And you're like, this is a huge issue. Like, I can't make a difference, right? And if you give people a way to help, they usually will answer the call. I think that people give me hope for the future and what we can do when we come together and when we believe in ourselves and when we believe in a better world. We are so completely honored by this award, just because it's, you know, the Jack Layton Legacy Activism Award. And I know that Ryan is smiling down and he is so proud of this because he was so inspired by Jack Layton and he was a huge idol to Ryan. So it's such a huge honor for us. So I just want to thank you for that.
I just want to say thank you to everybody of the judges for giving us this honor. This honor belongs to Ryan. I know that he is still part of our life and work that we do. He's been guiding us on this journey. I know that he's smiling down because, you know, Jack was such an inspiration to him. This award also belongs to our whole team at Ryan's Hope. I always say that Ryan's Hope is not an organization, it is a community. And, you know, it's truly just neighbors helping neighbors. And I think what makes Ryan's Hope special is that we try to find everybody's strengths and bring everybody together into community and give everybody an opportunity to shine and share their strengths. And I've learned so much from every member of our community, and the work that we do in our community just continues to grow. And yeah, just thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. There we are. Look at that. Wow, that was incredibly powerful. And thank you again to the Naylors and to Ryan for his courage and spirit, and to Ryan's Hope, the critical change work that you're all doing on behalf of those affected by homelessness and mental illness and substance use. And now, the big moment that we've all been waiting for, enjoying the ceremonies so far. Before I call upon Judge of the award, Darnell Harris, to announce this year's recipient. I believe we have a video that we're going to be showing.
You know, in a house, the center of every house is the kitchen. And it's just like where people gather and where they end up hanging out and where they sort of like, you know, come and check in and go from all the time. The kitchen is always that central connecting place. And that is very, very much what Roots is in our community. So my name is Erin B. Roots to Harvest. And in May of 2022, we officially became part of the Community Food Centers Canada network, and we're now one of 15 across Canada. So as Roots Community Food Centre, we're really excited to be awarded the Layton Activism Award. Roots Community Food Centre uses food as a tool to connect people to one another and build belonging and dignity through meaningful programs in our community here in Thunder Bay. And we work around our region, connecting around food with urban farms, with community kitchens, with affordable food markets and community meals, and classroom visits and community visits to really build positive relationships and seek to have a broader impact on the root causes of food insecurity. At first, we started working with young people, and quickly we saw that urban farms are spaces that all of the community is drawn to, that can have an impact positively on our community as a whole and help people participate in ways that are more meaningful and valuable to them. If I think of Jack Layton and the person he was for our country, I know that food access was a big part of what he believed in, but he was also so good at addressing the root causes behind it. It's not that people don't have, that there's not enough food for people. It's that the systems in place prevent people from being able to get the equal access that they deserve to it. I really believe that the work we're doing at Roots Community Food Center and at community food centers across the country is really aiming to work on the root causes of food insecurity. It's not just about putting band-aids on things, and it's not just about very quick fixes. It's about real, impactful change that lasts generation to generation and family to family, so that people can live better lives, so that Canadians can live better lives. And we're really committed to that. Yeah, and we hope to honor his legacy in that way.
And now one of our judges from this year, Darnell Harris.
So, you know, you just saw the wonderful work that the Roots Community Food Center is doing. And once we had narrowed down the initial 100+ nominations, that's when our work really began. And over weeks of deliberations, time and time again, our winner kept rising to the top. They're a small but rapidly growing organization addressing both immediate community needs as well as advocating for systemic changes and focused on building a sustainable organization of activists. They have built momentum, as you've seen, forging many strategic collaborations with key other community agencies. With solid plans for development, as well as strong leadership, our winner is in it for the long haul. Using food as a tool to connect people to one another and build belonging and dignity through meaningful programs, initiatives, and advocacy, our award winner envisions and empowers a reality where people are connected, where they're welcomed, inspired, and involved in an equitable and resilient community. The offerings are diverse, but what lies at the heart of the 2022 Layton Activism Award winner is their tireless advocacy work. Their Dignified Food Access campaign rallied organizations and individuals across Thunder Bay to talk about what a dignified food access experience looks and feels like. Based on the statement that everyone deserves to access quality food in a respectful way, the resources and public campaign resulted from their collaborative work have been instrumental at advocating at various levels to fight the root causes of food insecurity. And of course, I'm sure the planting helps too. With humble beginnings as a small local organization, in 2021, as you know, they were welcomed into the Community Food Centers Canada family, a national network of 14 other organizations with the same principles to provide good food for all. They believe there is certainly always room at the table when it comes to community, and we simply couldn't agree more. So please join me in a big round of applause for the 2022 Layton Activism Award winner, the Roots Community Center from Thunder Bay, Ontario.
Thank you so much, Darnell, and to everybody there. There are so many people that I'm in complete awe of on this call and in this room, from Olivia to Libby to Sven, people who I've grown up admiring. So it's really an incredible honor to be here. I want to acknowledge first that the Roots Community Food Center works, lives, and grows and plays on the lands that are traditional territory for the Anishinaabe people, who are signatory to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. Especially at this time of year when we plant and grow and harvest throughout the season, a very short growing season in Thunder Bay, to be exact. Today, I'm actually speaking from the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, now called Prince Edward Island, on the shores of the Atlantic, visiting family. On behalf of the board and the staff of Roots Community Food Center in Thunder Bay, I'm honored to accept the Layton Legacy Activism Award. Though our work centers around food security, we are all about people here at Roots, about improving the conditions for our community to have an equitable access to the conditions that all people deserve. We focus on dignity, connection, and advocacy. And now, as part of Food Centers Canada, this has a ripple effect across the country and for all Canadians. And when we heard Bob and Anne speak about Jack, from community to country, it just comes up over and over. But there's these community and grassroots ways that ripple across our country. The legacy of hope and activism and positive change that Jack Layton built and that remains because of the man he was continues to inspire our country. And here at Roots Community Food Center, we're honored to do our work to build on his legacy. And there is still so much work to do. As all of you in the room know, and your communities know, that we need more activists and change makers and movers and shakers to just go out there and do the work that needs to be done. Thank you so much to the Layton Legacy Committee and the Institute for Change Leaders for the recognition of our work from all of us at Roots Community Food Center. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you can take it with you, yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Congratulations again. Félicitations encore une fois. Olivia, would you like to come to close?
Yes, thank you to all the folks that have put in the application for the awards. There's like 100 of you. I know that there's only one winner and honorable mention, but fear not. We have something designed just for you, all of you that have participated. We have put together an event called Activism Showcase Celebration. And it's a virtual event, and it will showcase your organizations, your campaign, your project. You can come and make a pitch, and from that pitch, you might be able to get some volunteers, get some donations, make some connections, network with each other. We can even provide some coaching and teaching because we have some mentors and, Institute for Change Leaders out teaching. You can collaborate with each other. So this event is going to be in September 13th. I believe it's a Tuesday at 7:30 to 9 p.m. And you can register right on the changeleaders.ca homepage. And we can't wait to see you there. And by the way, the Thunder Bay team, one of the things that that Jack Layton always talked about, because he loved to eat, is why can't kids under 18 have a decent, whether it's breakfast or lunch or snacks, in school or in daycare centers? So in the 2011 election platform, I happen to remember, I'm a complete policy wonk, I remember that platform that has a national food program for children. So that may be something we could work on. But I digress completely. And as a recovering politician, can't help it. Okay, Mike, we're supposed to thank people.
Yeah, sure, just here. Here. So in closing, we want to make sure that we thank Bob and Anne and Karl again for bringing Jack's legacy back to life again today. Not just today though, but in every day, in all the work that you're all doing. We want to thank Jasper Jack, the Layton Legacy, and the Douglas Coldwell Layton Foundation for their partnership and collaboration on these awards. Of course, we thank Toronto Metropolitan University, the workers here and staff, OPSU Local 596, and also Brian, our tech expert. And of course, a thank you to all the staff from the Institute for Change Leaders.
Yeah, Kate that helped put this together, and Emret here, a whole team of them, Tanya hiding in the back here, and Duncan, there's a whole team, and Christina, okay, I should stop naming, and Kirsten, there's a large team both in the Zoom and physical here. Thank you for all your dedication, because I know you worked through the weekend, and for months you were helping out and pulling it together.
Of course, last but not least, thank you to the recipients. Again, honorable mention for Ryan's Hope and Roots Community Food Center, again, for carrying on Jack's legacy of love, hope, and optimism. Bonjour à tous, bonne journée. Thank you, Marseille. And let's keep taking action. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Here we are.
Good evening, everyone. My name is William Prince. Speaking to you today from Treaty 1 territory, Winnipeg, Manitoba. And when I think of people with a purpose, especially for that of hope, and optimism, and equality for all, it's pretty easy to think of Jack Layton. So thank you so much. From my family to yours, to Jack Layton and his family, and everybody a part of the Layton legacy, for allowing me to be a small part of it in this way. This is a song called Wasted, about not letting your days pass without purpose and to help those around you. So I think this is the one. I love staying up so late. I love getting a good night's sleep. I want to hear some old hymns tonight. I need to hear Christopher Wallace speak. I could go for some food right now. I could care less if we ever eat. I sure love just sitting around. Some days I'm never off my feet, but gotta love what you do, babe, for that jingle jangle, 'cause we only get a few days. Nobody makes it out of here anyway. Puts a shuffle in your shoes, babe. That's the thing worth chasing. Gotta love what you do, babe, so not a day goes wasted. Don't wanna let a day go wasted. So go ahead, be a scientist. Start a band with your best friends. Be the muscle with a phony list. Change some oil, burn your wrist. Stay home, raise a family. Go teach gym overseas. I'll love you for whatever it is. Just don't let a day go wasted. Don't wanna let a day go wasted. So, gotta Gotta love what you do, babe, for that jingle jangle, 'cause we only get a few days. Nobody makes it out of here anyway. Puts a shuffle in your shoes, babe. That's the thing worth chasing. Gotta love what you do, babe, so not a day goes wasted. Don't wanna let a day go wasted. I like the TV way too loud. I like it colder when we sleep. I drive too close to the outside lane. I drive you crazy when I breathe. Think I'm ready for a new life. Think I'm ready for a beautiful wife. Think I'm done with fighting, 'cause it's just time we're wasting. Thank you, Jack.